Someone found a young mother dead in her room. Detectives had almost nothing to go on when they first started their probe, but soon the case took a turn that no one saw coming. Because of this, they found shocking information that changed the way the case went and helped them find the truth. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the disturbing story of Michelle Young. Michelle Young was born on February 17, 1977, in Sagal, New York, a small town in the United States. From a very young age, the girl had a strong will and never gave up. She gave herself big goals and did everything she could to reach them. She did very well in school and was the star of the cheerleading team. She also decided early on what she wanted to do for a living. Michelle wanted to be a tax attorney. Michelle went to NC State University in Raleigh, North Carolina, to get the schooling she needed. She also joined the neighborhood cheerleading team, but she later quit to focus on her schoolwork more. She got her master's degree 4 years later, and almost right away after that, she got a job at a neighborhood accounting firm. Even though Michelle had just started her work, she was making a good living at her job. She started out by renting an apartment in a good area and spending a lot of time working her way up the job ladder. Michelle met Jason when she was 24 and having a party with her friends in February 2001. He was a few years older than her and went to the same college as her. The two people quickly found things they had in common, and they started dating soon after. Jason was a sales representative for a big company that made power tools. He lived in another place, and when they met, he was doing business in Raleigh. After he met Michelle, he went there more often, and when he couldn't, they talked on the phone. Later, he went to the city for good, and after some time, he started living with Michelle. Michelle got pregnant 2 years later, and in August 2003, the couple chose to get married. On March 29, 2004, their daughter Cassidy was born. At the same time, the family moved into a big house in a nice neighborhood on the edge of the city. Meredith, Michelle's sister, moved to Raleigh around the same time and often helped the family take care of the baby. Michelle got pregnant again 2 years later, and she and her husband chose to go see Jason's parents to celebrate. They lived in Brevard, which was 400 kilometers from their home. Instead of being a happy time, the trip turned out to be a tragedy. Jason and Michelle had planned to go back to Raleigh on the day they were in a serious car crash that ended Michelle's pregnancy. The news was terrible for the whole family, but Michelle got pregnant again just 2 months later. After a while, the couple found out they were having a boy, and they could not wait for him to come into the world. On November 2, 2006, Jason left to work as a salesperson in another city. He often went to different parts of the country for business meetings and talks. This time, he was going to Clintwood, a town about 490 kilometers away. Michelle asked her friend Shelley to come over that day. The two women talked until it was time for the friend to go home. The next morning, Jason called Meredith, his wife's sister, and told her that before he left for another city, he found some bags in an online store with a good discount and wanted to order one for Michelle as a gift for their 3rd anniversary. After he left, he realized that he had used these bags to print out several pages and left them on the table in his home office. Jason did not want his wife to see them and find out about the gift, so he asked her sister to take them from their house. Meredith agreed, and she showed up at their house around 1 p.m. She did not have the keys with her at the time, and Michelle was meant to be at work. However, the woman knew that the garage door was broken and could be easily opened by hand. She did that, but as soon as she did, she noticed something odd. Her sister's car was parked inside. Meredith walked into the house because she thought she had gone to work. Michelle's bag was on the floor when she walked into the kitchen. The woman called out her sister's name, but no one answered. Instead, she heard the strange sound of their dog barking. Jason and Michelle Always let the dog out into the garden when they left the house. When the woman went upstairs, she saw something red on the bedroom floor. As she got closer, she saw that it was a blood spot, and next to it was her sister Michelle. This horrified her. She was on her back. Meredith went up to her sister and tried to turn her over, but her sister's body felt cold right away. The woman was scared and called 911 right away. At the same time, Cassidy, who was 2 years old and hiding under the bed next to where the body was, crawled out and ran to her aunt when she saw her. Meredith called the cops and took her outside to wait for them. When the woman was talking to the operator, he asked, "Is the child okay?" Meredith checked on her and did not see any obvious injuries. Small blood spots were all over the room, and she knew right away that they were the child's footsteps. The child was given right away to the doctors to be checked out, and the police started to look into the crime scene. They noticed something strange right away. There were bloody footprints all over the room, but Cassidy's feet were clean. Also, the girl did not have a single drop of blood on her. Only one set of footprints led to the bathroom. On the inside of the bathroom door, there were blood stains that looked like they were made by the child's hand. With all of this information, the agents came up with the most likely explanation for what had happened. The girl was locked in the bathroom for a while after the murder, and then someone came in and washed the blood off of Cassidy. When the cops talked to Michelle's friend later, they found something else interesting. Shelley said that the night before, they put the girl to sleep with them, and she was wearing a diaper. But when the victim's sister went to her house, the baby did not have a diaper on. Based on this, the police decided that the same person who washed the blood off the child was also the one who took off the child's diaper. The police did not find any signs of a break-in in the house. Michelle's wedding and engagement rings were missing from her hand, but all of her other belongings, including cash, were still there. This ruled out the possibility that she had been robbed. 2 small hairs that did not belong to the victim were found on her body and near her. There were no DNA samples from Michelle or her husband in the treasure box. There were also fingerprints in the house that did not belong to anyone in their family. Experts found 2 shoe prints with a design on the soles in the room where the victim's body was found. The shoes were American sizes 10 and 12, and the prints were on the floor. They were even able to figure out what kind of shoes they were. Also, police saw blood splatters on the door of the closet with clothes. But the door was open, and the way the splatters were placed made it look like the door should have been shut. When they got to Jason's home office computer, the cops looked at the browsing history and found something interesting. There were pages from a store for women's handbags and a search for routes to Clintwood, but there were also some scary searches, such as the anatomy of a knockout, loss of consciousness from head trauma, and other similar subjects. Medical experts decided that Michelle died because a big object hit her head and hurt her brain. The person who did it hit her more than 30 times. When she died, she was 5 months pregnant, and her baby did not make it. Experts could not say for sure when Michelle died, but they thought it was most likely between 5 and 6 in the morning. The violence of the crime suggested that the person who did it may have known the victim and disliked her very much. As usual, the police looked into Michelle's husband first. They talked to their friends and family, and they told them a lot of interesting things. Their marriage had a lot of problems because Jason and Michelle fought a lot about things at home. Also, Jason was not happy when his wife found out she was going to have their first child. He asked her to have an abortion, but Michelle said no. After an accident Jason and Michelle were in, Michelle got pregnant again. Jason was not happy about this. It seemed likely that the couple would split up in the near future. Meredith also told the police that Jason's request to get the handbag back seemed strange at first, especially since their marriage was having problems, and it had been more than 3 weeks since their anniversary. But one clear fact went against the idea that Jason was involved. He was in a different place 490 kilometers away when the murder happened. After Michelle's sister found her dead body and called the police, she also told Michelle's other family members what had happened. Jason was on his way from Clintwood to see his parents when Michelle's mother called them. Before he went home, he stopped by his folks' house. When he got there, they told him what had happened. When Jason heard the news, he was shocked. He and some other cousins left right away for Raleigh. A friend called Jason while he was on this trip to tell him that the cops were asking a lot of questions about him. Jason did something strange when he said he did not want to talk to the police and instead wanted to hire a lawyer. This made the police even more suspicious, but it also gave them a new clue. Shelley went to see the victim the day before the murder and said something interesting to the cops. Michelle had told her that she had been feeling like someone was always watching her lately. Shelley herself also felt like someone was watching them through the window that evening, and even asked her friend to walk her to her car because she was a little scared to leave the house alone. Detectives tried to find any evidence related to possible surveillance, but continued to investigate Jason's potential participation. Jason left his house in his car on November 2nd in the afternoon, and given it was about a 6-hour drive to Clintwood, he decided to stop and stay at the Hampton Hotel, which is roughly halfway on the route. Detectives requested security footage from this hotel and actually saw Jason check in at 10:54 p.m., and 2 minutes later, he used his key card to enter his room, and the card was not used again after that. The next morning, around 7:40 a.m., he called his mother, and the signal went through a cell tower located near the town of Whiteville. This town was on the way from the hotel to Clintwood, where his business meeting was meant to take place. The cops also learned that the meeting was supposed to happen at 10 a.m., but Jason was 30 minutes late. When Jason and his family got home, the cops took his white Ford Explorer away. Forensic experts looked at it and could not find any blood or other clues. They also looked in the man's hotel room, but did not find anything there either. All of Jason's clothes and other things were the same. In a strange twist, the same brand of size 12 boots were found in his car, and their tracks were found in the house. But it was a different style with a different design on the bottom. A court order made the man give a DNA sample, which did not match the 2 hairs found on the body of the victim. His fingerprints were also taken, but that did not help much because they were all over his house. Experts could only say that none of the fingerprints found had any signs of blood on them. So, the cops could not find any proof that Jason was involved in the murder. He did not talk to the cops and hired a lawyer instead. Another thing indirectly showed that he was not guilty. The cops looked through Jason's car and found a receipt from a hotel and a new newspaper. A worker at Hampton said that he had put them under his door between 3 and 5 a.m. This proved for sure that the man was at the hotel that morning. In the end, things got pretty complicated. Jason could have killed his wife only if he had sneaked out of the hotel in the middle of the night, driven 270 kilometers to his house, done the deed, cleaned himself of blood, then driven 270 kilometers back, and quietly gotten back into his room so that the electronic key did not record it. Detectives tried to figure out if this was possible in theory. They talked to people who worked at the hotel, and this is where they found an interesting tip. One of the workers noticed early in the morning of November 3 that a small red stone was holding the fire door on the first floor slightly open. The worker was surprised because this door was always locked from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. He took the rock out from under the door and shut it. After that, the man chose to check the security cameras and saw that the one on the stairwell next to the door was not working. The worker walked up to it and saw that someone had cut the wire to the camera. He asked his coworker to put the wire back where it belonged, and the camera started working again around 5:50 a.m. From the records, the detectives learned that the camera was turned off at 11:19 p.m. Then, at 6:35 a.m., less than an hour after the camera was back up and running, something interesting happened. It suddenly turned around and looked up. Since there is no automatic way to move it, the only thing that could be done was for someone to turn it so that it did not face the hallway. The hotel staff said that the camera had never been turned off before, and that the only time it had been turned up was a few years ago, when a guest wanted to sneak out of the hotel without being seen. This showed the officers that Jason could have left the hotel, gone home, and then come back. The idea was clear with the door and the camera. The fire doors in the hotel are made so that you can only open them from inside the room. Jason could have left the hotel through this door instead of the main entrance, where workers and other cameras would have seen him. Investigators talked to all of Michelle's neighbors, and this was another place where they found interesting hints. Around 4 a.m. on the night of the murder, a woman was bringing newspapers to a neighborhood near Michelle's house when she saw a light-colored SUV, but she could not remember what kind it was. Around 5:20 a.m., another neighbor went to work and also saw a white SUV near Jason and Michelle's house. She saw a man behind the wheel as she passed, but she could not see his face. Even more interesting was the fact that a woman was sitting in the passenger seat next to him. The next-door neighbor thought she was trying to hide her face. The third witness drove by her house at 6:15 a.m. and saw a white SUV there, but no one was in it. The Texas thought that Jason owned this car, so the fact that there was a woman in the car with him was a big surprise. No one could figure out who she was, but during the investigation, police learned that the man had been cheating on his wife with her friends since they were in college. The woman lived in Florida, and Jason went to see her there often under the pretense of going on work trips. Detectives also found out that the lovers had called each other about 50 times the day before Michelle's murder, but they did not know what they talked about. Even after all of this, the cops still had no proof that Jason was involved in the murder. He still would not talk to the cops if his lawyer was not there, but he did not answer their questions, even when the lawyer was there. Detectives kept working on the case, and in the end, it took many months to figure out what happened. They were almost sure that Jason was the one who killed the man, but they did not have enough proof to arrest him right away. Not until December 14, 2009, 3 years after the murder, did this happen. Investigators knew they could not find any new proof, so they put together everything they had and charged him with murder. In June 2011, after 2 years, the trial began. The prosecutor said that Jason planned to kill his wife because he did not want to lose some of his property in the divorce. According to their story, he first chose to stay at that hotel because he could drive back home, commit the murder, and then drive back to the hotel. Jason's ex-girlfriends also spoke up at the hearing. One of them said that he had proposed to her and given her a ring, but that he later grabbed her hand during a fight and took the ring off her finger. Since the killer took the rings off Michelle's hand, the prosecution thought these comments were important. The second woman Jason slept with turned out to be a friend of Michelle's. She said that when Michelle went somewhere, she hung out with the man at his house. She was also married, and Jason took off her wedding ring on one of those nights. He did not give it back until the next day, which the woman thought was strange. A college friend of Michelle's, who was also one of her lovers, also spoke at the hearing. She said that they did have a relationship, but the prints they wrote to was much more interesting. Just a few days before the murder, he had written to her expressing uncertainty about the situation and predicting a tragic outcome. The message stated that he was unaware of how things had unfolded, but he knew they would ultimately result in 2 broken hearts. Despite the impending suffering he anticipated, he conveyed that she was worth it, even if only for a brief moment. The content of this message was deeply unsettling, given that Michelle's life ended shortly after receiving it. But one of the most important witnesses was a woman who worked at a gas station between Raleigh and the town where Jason's hotel was. At 5:20 a.m., a guy in a white SUV pulled up to the farthest pump, she said. He tried to fill up his car, but at night, the law says that you have to pay for gas first or show your ID. The driver went into the gas station and yelled at the worker. He then threw $20 at her, put $15 worth of gas in his car, and left without taking the change. The woman said she knew this guy from the picture, and it turned out to be Jason Young. This witness changed the way the case went because she showed that Jason was between his house and the hotel early in the morning. This showed, once again, that he could have killed his wife. Meredith, Michelle's sister, also spoke up at the hearing. Michelle's daughter Cassidy stayed with her father, who moved in with his parents after Michelle was killed. Michelle's family tried for a long time to get a court order letting them take the girl to live with them briefly. This went on for a few years, and just as the lawyers were about to get a good ruling, Jason just gave up full custody of Meredith, essentially leaving her behind. So the girl moved in with cousins of her mother, who have been raising her without her father's help ever since. Jason told the court for the first time what he thought happened and denied that he had killed his wife. He admitted that their marriage was coming apart, but he said that they would have gotten a divorce anyway, and that he had no reason to kill her. His lawyers said there was no proof against Jason and tried to show that he could not have driven so far to kill his wife and get back to the hotel so early in the morning. But one of the most important witnesses was a woman who worked at a gas station between Raleigh and the town where Jason's hotel was. At 5:20 a.m., a guy in a white SUV pulled up to the farthest pump, she said. He tried to fill up his car, but at night, the law says that you have to pay for gas first or show your ID. The driver went into the gas station and yelled at the worker. He then threw $20 at her, put $15 worth of gas in his car, and left without taking the change. The woman said she knew this guy from the picture, and it turned out to be Jason Young. This witness changed the way the case went because she showed that Jason was between his house and the hotel early in the morning. This showed, once again, that he could have killed his wife. Meredith, Michelle's sister, also spoke up at the hearing. Michelle's daughter Cassidy stayed with her father, who moved in with his parents after Michelle was killed. Michelle's family tried for a long time to get a court order letting them take the girl to live with them briefly. This went on for a few years, and just as the lawyers were about to get a good ruling, Jason just gave up full custody of Meredith, essentially leaving her behind. So the girl moved in with cousins of her mother, who have been raising her without her father's help ever since. Jason told the court for the first time what he thought happened and denied that he had killed his wife. He admitted that their marriage was coming apart, but he said that they would have gotten a divorce anyway, and that he had no reason to kill her. His lawyers said there was no proof against Jason and tried to show that he could not have driven so far to kill his wife and get back to the hotel so early in the morning. They tried to figure out how much gas his car used on average and compared that to how often he filled up. The lawyers say that he would not have had enough gas to make the drive, but it was not possible to check this version. Still, the jurors could not come to a decision as a group, so the judge had to call a mistrial and set a new hearing for a year later. Something else important happened against this background. Michelle's family was sure that Jason had killed her, so they chose to sue him in civil court. In civil trials, the judge does not need as much proof as in criminal trials, and the person cannot be sent to jail. Jason paid no attention to this case and chose not to take part in the process, which turned out to be a mistake. After looking at all the proof, the judge decided that he was the one who killed his wife. He ordered Jason to pay Michelle's family $15 million. During the retrial in 2012, the prosecution was permitted to present the verdict of the civil case as evidence of the suspect's guilt. During the preparations, they also found out something else. It turned out that Jason had bought boots with the same pattern a year before he was killed. A bloody print of those boots was found in Michelle's room, but they could not find the shoes. These new details only made Jason's case stronger, and this time, the jury decided he was guilty of murder. The man got a sentence of life in jail without the chance of getting out. His lawyers tried to fight the ruling, and they still do so today, but all of their appeals are turned down. The media talked a lot about this case, and the end of it led to heated debates. On the one hand, after all these years, no physical proof has been found to link Jason to the murder. On the other hand, there was a lot of proof that showed the man had almost pulled off a perfect cover-up. He might have gotten away with the crime if he had not stopped at the gas station that morning and paid for gas. But the jury thought the proof was strong enough to convict him, and he has been in prison ever since, even though he says he is innocent. What do you think of this case? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, do like and subscribe to our channel for more such stories. Thanks for watching.